welcome to Wrestlemania.
Ooh, yeah! I am the game! Woo!
Yes! I will give you a show like you have never, ever seen before. Why? Because I am
the best there is, the best there was, and the best that there ever will be.
You will rest in peace. What you gonna do when the whole world falls? I mean, destroy
And that's
you.
the bottom line, cause Stone Cold says it.
Hello all, it is your boy, Deluxe Man. Welcome to another edition of my WrestleMania review series. We are 13 WrestleManias in, and today we look at WrestleMania 13. Tagline, Heat, in reference to the main event. And of course, that amazing, amazing submission match. We'll get to all of that in just a second. In terms of match quality, the show is decent. I wouldn't watch it more than once. It's just one of those shows, you sit through it, and you're good. The crowd loved it. I mean, it did its job. But in terms of replay value, watching it over and over and over again, not so good, not so much. The only thing that I would rewatch is that submission match. That's the only thing rewatchable on this show. But the show itself, not so much. Alright, before I even begin, you need some background. So much has happened in between WrestleMania 12 and 13 that it's basically a different product. They were getting their butts kicked badly by WCW at this time. So they had to change. I'm talking about NWO bringing in Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone. That actually happened. And then Jay Leno. Not the greatest of people to bring in, but regardless, WCW was whooping that ass. And WWF had to do something. So you need some backstory to this. We're going to be here for a while. This is the first and only WrestleMania so far to not sell out. I think the attendance was 18,197. They were only able to sell 16,000 tickets. That's a lot that they couldn't sell. They gave them away for free apparently, but that sucks. Again, like I said, these are hard times, Dusty Rhodes, baby. Bad times for WWF. However, it's very interesting when you look at the roster that was very thin last year. You see a sudden boom. You're starting to see a sudden boom in new performers like Mankind, Mick Foley, and The Rock, Rocky Maivia. New characters, different presentations of people. Stone Cold Steve Austin finally is starting to get into his own. And a lot of that has to do with one other company, and it's not WCW. That was part of it. But the other part of it came from ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling. Paul Heyman's baby was making headlines. ECW was the complete opposite of what WWF and WCW was doing. And because of that, ECW gained some momentum during the time. And of course, Vince McMahon being who he is, the businessman that he is, he looks at ECW and goes, you know what? Let's do that. Let's capitalize on what ECW is doing and incorporate some hardcore fights, that hardcore element into the product. Comparing WrestleMania 12 to WrestleMania 13, the feel is different. The matches feel different. And that's a good thing. That's a great thing. It's a drastic change. Jim Ross is back on commentary. Thank you. And it helps. Jim Ross really helped on this show because when Vince McMahon was calling the moments, you had Jim Ross calling the moves, and you had J.D. King Lawler providing color commentary. And it helped. This show benefited from great commentary tonight, and I was happy about that. As I said, this was the WrestleMania debut of people like Mick Foley, who was Mankind, and also Rocky Maivia, The Rock. That horrible gimmick they gave The Rock when he first came in. It was bad. Horrible. Almost every show, he got Rocky sucks, die, Rocky die chants. I mean, they continued to push him. They continued to push him as a babyface despite the heat, but eventually, they had no choice but to turn him heel, which was the best thing that could happen in his career. He later joined the Nation of Domination and becomes The Rock. Simply The Rock. This is also the year we got the formation of D-Generation X with Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and Chyna. Chyna came in this year. She was buff, like muscular Olympian buff. I would love her as my bodyguard. Nobody would screw with me if Chyna was in my corner. This is Bret Hart's last WrestleMania before he leaves for WCW. Another big name leaving the WWF. His exit, however, is not as quiet as the others. Kevin Nash and Scott Hall just kind of rode off into the sunset. Bret Hart's exit? Ugh. Not one of the best ways to go out. He was currently in a heel position. He was a heel, basically. I guess he's a heel in the U.S. and then babyface in Canada. I don't know what you would call that, but basically every time he was in the U.S., people hated him. But then he went to Canada and he was a hero. Is he a heel? Is he a face? I'm not too sure. But regardless, this was his last year. Now, let's get to some other details about this show. Shawn Michaels was not wrestling. He was on the show, but he wasn't wrestling. Let's talk about this mess. So, Shawn Michaels vacated the championship due to losing his smile. And he had an injury as well, but it was mostly because he lost his smile. Here's the truth. He didn't give up that championship because he lost his smile. Shawn Michaels was supposed to have a match against Bret Hart at WrestleMania. Yeah, another match. And he did not want to drop that belt to Bret Hart. During this time, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels had massive heat. The heat between them was on a completely different level, an all-time high. You couldn't even put them in the same room with each other without them trying to kill each other. It was bad. They've always had beef, but it wasn't personal. It was just competitive. I think I'm better than you. That beef is okay. That's beneficial. It was personal. And Shawn Michaels did not want to drop anything to Bret Hart. He refused to put him over. And as a result, he decided to drop the belt. He gave it up. He vacated it. This isn't the only time he did this. He did it before, in 1995, to Shane Douglas. He didn't want to drop the IC Championship to Shane Douglas, so he gave it up. Shane got the belt and then immediately lost it. Immediately lost it to Razor Ramon, Scott Hall. That's why Shane Douglas doesn't like Shawn Michaels, or the Clique. In November that year, you all know the story. Hart is leaving for WCW, but like Shawn Michaels, Hart doesn't want to drop the belt to him. So Vince McMahon has no choice but to take matters into his own hands and intentionally screws Bret Hart out of the championship during the match, in fear of him taking that belt to WCW and Eric Bischoff basically putting it on TV and burning it. Where would they get that from? Their own women's champion, Alundra Blaze, who is now Medusa in WCW, betrayed them. It's very, very crazy around this time. They were paranoid. Everybody coming in or coming from WCW was seen as an enemy. Poor Vader. Poor Vader. He learned that the hard way. And of course, that screw job gave a lot, if not probably all the momentum to Bret Hart. When he went to WCW, he was the hottest wrestler in the entire wrestling world. And of course, WCW squandered that because they're idiots. But Vince McMahon, oh no. No. See, Vinnie Mac was smarter than that. He used that to gain a lot of heat. Put a lot of heat on himself. And then he became one of the biggest heels. He left commentary. Thank you. He finally leaves commentary. He finally acknowledges that he is the boss. He's in charge. Deal with it. Psycho Sid Vicious won the World Championship after it was vacated. It's important to know that Sid Vicious defeated Shawn Michaels back at Survivor Series 1996, and during his run, he actually outdrew Shawn. Yeah, Sid Vicious, Psycho Sid Vicious, actually performed better as a champion in terms of profiting, in terms of making money, in terms of putting people in their seats. Sid did better than Shawn, and Shawn didn't like that. That's a big blow to his ego. And as you can imagine, it made him very, very bitter. Around this time, Shawn Michaels was in I don't give a fuck mode. You can just see him acting crazy, going out of his mind on TV. He did not give a damn anymore. And it actually led to some great TV. But it's also interesting to know that Psycho Sid, despite being a heel, was loved. He was being cheered loudly everywhere he went. Another person being cheered? Stone Cold Steve Austin. Let me tell you something. ever since he won King of the Ring in 1996, not to mention the Royal Rumble this year, his popularity skyrocketed. They did everything they could. They pulled out all the tricks in their arsenal to get fans to hate Stone Cold Steve Austin. It didn't work. The more evil, the more of a bastard he was to people, the more they loved him. Don't get me started on what they did with Brian Pillman and Austin that year. A lot happened in 1997. But during this time, Austin was impossible to hate. And eventually, they just gave up. They said, you know what, fine, we'll turn you babyface. And we saw him just take the reins as the top guy in the wrestling business. Not even in WWF, the business. It does suck that in 1997, he suffered a major injury when he took on Owen Hart. Owen Hart hit him with a sit-out tombstone pile driver, messed up his neck, and he couldn't wrestle for a few months. As I said, Austin won the Royal Rumble, but he won it in controversial fashion. So Hart had originally won the Royal Rumble. He originally eliminated Austin from the match, but Austin's elimination wasn't seen by the referee. Austin got back into the ring, threw out Hart, and he won the Rumble. As a result, we did a Four Corners elimination match for Shawn Michaels' vacated championship. Hart won that match, 4-time champion. But then the next night, Austin screwed Hart out of the championship, and Psycho Sid is your new WWF World Heavyweight Champion. He goes on to fight Taker, while Austin and Hart go on to have a classic at WrestleMania 13. Once again, no national anthem. I think for the next few WrestleManias, we don't get a national anthem. I don't know why. They like it that way. Whatever. Alright, let's breeze through these matches. We opened up with a 4-team elimination match. It was average. It started off pretty bad. Although it was cool seeing JBL, Bradshaw at the time, he was tag teaming with Barry Windham, and they were called the New Blackjacks. Headbangers won. It was an average match. We had Honky Tonk Man come out on commentary to talk about the WWF Intercontinental Championship match between Rocky Maivia, aka The Rock, versus the Sultan, aka Rikishi, with Iron Sheik. So, both these gimmicks suck. I already talked about Rocky Maivia, but the Sultan is even worse. Seriously, when I think about the Sultan, I think about a horrible cross between Ermac and Goro for Mortal Kombat. It didn't really click with me. It was bad. I laughed at it. The match itself, let's call it like it is. It wasn't good. Crowd didn't care. Both men were still trying to find themselves, both inside the ring and as characters. It just wasn't working. And the match itself was very underwhelming. He kept the championship. He beat the Sultan. There was a post-match fight between Sultan and Rock, which led to Rocky Johnson coming in to make the save. His dad coming in to make the save. And it was a cool moment to see The Rock and his father have that WrestleMania moment, hugging, sharing the ring. It was cool. But that's all I gotta say about that. Hunter, Hearst Helmsley with Chyna, the debut of Chyna, taking on Goldust with Marlena, aka Terri Runnels. I don't think I talked about Marlena. I like Terri Runnels, but she didn't really have that much of an impact on WWF, unlike Chyna and Triple H going forward. The match itself was average. I can tell both men tried very hard to make that match work. It just didn't work. It never got out of first gear. The finish was well done. I liked the finish. Matter of fact, that was my favorite part. I loved seeing Chyna. Okay, so we have Marlena on the ropes, and then she falls into Chyna's arms, and Chyna is just ragdolling her ass back and forth. I was laughing. It was amazing. I thought it was hilarious. Hunter, Hearst Helmsley is your winner. That was probably the only good thing about this match, though. Everything else, I would skip. We have a Tag Team Championship match. British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, and Owen Hart, your champions. They're taking on Mankind and Vader with Paul Bearer. Some of you just went, why is Paul Bearer with Mankind and Vader? So in 1996, Paul Bearer betrayed The Undertaker, and he's now the manager of Mankind. A lot has happened. I'm telling you, if you do not watch Raw or any show in between these shows, you will be lost. But yeah, Paul Bearer is with Mankind, and he'll be with someone else later this year as well. In terms of the Tag Team Championship match, it was a weird match. Both tag teams put on a good performance. In terms of being veterans inside their ring, it was actually pretty solid. I didn't like the finish. I hate double countouts. I hate when a match goes to a no contest. Either have a winner or don't do the match. That's just my opinion. I didn't like that. But it was also weird because both teams are heels. Who was I supposed to root for? But it was alright. It was decent. I'll say it was decent because the guys in the ring actually did a good performance. But the ending didn't really help things. So, decent is good enough. Alright, here we go. To me, this match is the match people should watch when it comes to WrestleMania 13. This is the match that people remember WrestleMania 13 for. The no DQ submission match. I say no DQ because there was no disqualification in this match. They used weapons. It was not your typical submission match. Your special guest referee was Ken Shamrock. That's right. Ken Shamrock made his debut in the WWF in this match. We got Bret, the Hitman Hart, taking on Stone Cold Steve Austin. This, to me, is one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. And some dare argue it's the greatest match in WrestleMania history. Even if you don't know the history between Austin and Hart, which is a fabulous feud, by the way. It extends back to Survivor Series last year. But even if you don't know that, if you're watching it as a fan coming in for the first time, you'll still love this match. This match was so good. It was so good. I'll be real with you. The crowd was dead for the first 90 minutes. Those first 4 matches didn't really excite the crowd. This match hit, and they were on their feet for the rest of the show. They did not sit down at all following this match. This match had everything you could want for a top quality match. Psychology, fast pace, blood, aggressiveness from both men, especially Bret Hart. Bret Hart was extremely aggressive because it played into a storytelling. But what the match is known for, and will forever be known for, is the infamous double turn. This is the match where we saw a shifting of the guards, where the fans completely turned on Bret Hart and got behind Stone Cold Steve Austin. They booed Bret Hart out of the arena. We would see him again, but he was not well loved after this match. And by the way, that ending is one of the most badass endings I've seen to any wrestling match. You have Austin covered in blood. His face is crimson red blood. But then you see Bret Hart put him in the sharpshooter, and Austin refuses to quit. He refuses to tap out, but then he passes out. And then Bret Hart wins by knockout. By the way, Jim Ross, you are the freaking man for doing this. Austin never gave up. He never gave up. He never said die. And that never say die attitude is what made Stone Cold Steve Austin one of the greatest, biggest wrestlers to ever walk the face of the earth. That is what would lead the WWF to eventually, finally beat WCW in the ratings. And that scene of Austin's face covered in blood while in the sharpshooter, legendary, iconic, an all-time classic moment. Not just for WrestleMania, but wrestling. Post-match, Bret Hart, although he won, goes completely insane. He starts attacking Austin's leg, forcing the crowd to boo him. Shamrock has to slam Hart down to make him stop. Bret Hart walks out to boos. Austin stands back up, walking out on his own 2 feet, and gets cheered. A huge reception from the audience. Much respect. It was hard to boo Austin after this. There was no way in hell he was going to be a heel following this. Alright, let's finish this up. We have a 6-man tag Chicago street fight. The Nation. We are the Nation of Domination. Farouk, Crush, and Savio Vega. They took on Hawk, Animal, and Ahmed Johnson, the Legion of Doom. Good match. It was extremely fun. A fun brawl with weapons. Like I said, ECW had a very, very noticeable influence on WWF. And you saw it in this match. They used everything. Trash cans, kendo sticks, 2x4s, ropes. Just a crazy fun ride. And Hawk, Animal, and Ahmed Johnson win. Easy. So to me, at this point, before we get to the main event, at this point, I was ready to slap a B on this show. I'm thinking, it's a solid show, it's fun. I knew the main event wasn't going to be a classic. I knew it was nowhere going to be close to matching or even topping the submission match. All I wanted was a solid match. Give me a decent to solid match, I'm fine. Ooh. They couldn't even do that. WrestleMania Streak Match number 6 for The Undertaker. No DQ WWF World Heavyweight Championship. Psycho Sid, your champion, took on the dead man himself, The Undertaker, in a bad match. This is not one of Taker's best showings. It's not his fault. Sid wasn't a good opponent. He was not a good opponent for Taker. The chemistry was way off. The first 15 minutes was boring. I was just sitting there going, nothing is happening. What is this? I mean, the fact that Bret Hart came in during the match didn't help it either, and it tainted the match for me. It didn't really give that prestigious feel that I would get if Taker beat Sid clean. It just really tainted his victory, and I don't know, I didn't really like it all that much. I didn't like this match. I thought it was bad. I will say this, though. Before the match, we had Bret Hart go out there complaining that I should get respect. I'm Bret Hart. I should be in the main event. And he even mentioned Shawn Michaels on the outside. By the way, let's pause for 1 minute. Shawn Michaels on commentary was hilarious during this match. He completely humiliated Bret Hart. He made him look like a chump, as you would expect him to, because he hates Bret Hart at this time. I will say, seeing The Undertaker celebrate was cool. I did like seeing him do that pose with the championship and the lights, the creatures of the night celebrating with him. It was a cool way to end the show. The right person went over. I still can't say the match was all that good. This was the weakest match on the card. And it was the main event. And that to me hurt the show. That's what brought this grade down from what could have been a solid show to just being decent. But thank you guys for watching. Comment down below about your thoughts when it comes to WrestleMania 13. Subscribe, like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you guys next time for WrestleMania 14. We get Austin and Shawn Michaels with Iron Mike Tyson, which is also the first WrestleMania I actually saw. So that's going to be very interesting.